can see by the picture I've got on the screen. It's wild. Hey, today's video is a really interesting topic. I actually found a Reddit post from within the last 24 hours. They just posted it. Someone left their menstrual cup in for over 7 days. So we're going to talk about that. But I ended up going in a rabbit hole and found someone who had theirs in for a year, found someone else who had theirs in for a month. We're going to talk about their stories. We're going to talk about the implications of doing something like this. We're going to discuss how you can avoid it. And we're going to talk about what to do if this does happen to you. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the Best Period channel. If you're new here, my name is Ganette Jones, founder and CEO of Best Period, where we talk all things about periods, vaginal health, and of course, menstrual cups. If that's your thing, if you have a vagina and you need to learn all things about it, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Now, without further ado, let's get into today's topic. So this first Reddit post that I found, which is very recent, that came in the last 24 hours, is titled, "Forgot that I was wearing a menstrual cup." Now, as someone who has a period care brand that sells menstrual cups, of course this caught my attention. So let's get into this. I'm going to put it on the screen too. Mimi Sakura, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, said, "Oh shock. My period started on March 7th, 2024, so recently. It usually lasts about 3 days with a bit of spotting for 2 days afterwards." I'm going to put it on the screen. You can pause if you want to read the whole thing. We're going to talk about the highlights. So this person said that their period started March 7th, and then on March 18th is when they discovered their cup was still inside of them, okay? We're talking about, what's that, a week and 4 days, right? They've had the cup in for a week and 4 days. Now, they found the cup on March 18th. They said they felt the tip of the menstrual cup at their opening when they went to use the bathroom. Now, I'm not going to get banned on these social platforms. You know what opening they're referring to. We understand the anatomy, yes? Okay. They said, "I pulled it and realized I've been wearing a menstrual cup for a couple of days." So she completely forgot she had the menstrual cup in. As I was reading it, I see she's a student. She said she was tired. You know, she had exams. She was just stressed as well. So those are her reasonings for keeping it in. She was working. She looks like she's a nurse. Maybe she's a nurse in school. It's not specified. But she says she has a white uniform and she didn't want to get a stain in her white uniform. So she put the cup in before her period came on, thinking that her period might come on, right? Knowing that it's going to come on soon. Then completely forgot about it because she must have a really light flow. Or maybe she's in high school because it says she dressed up for PE class, played volleyball, went home, went to sleep, and then the same scenario. So I was thinking she was a college student, but maybe having PE there, maybe it's a high school student. Not that this matters, right? So she found out, either way, she found out that the cup was inside of her. She also went hiking and swimming. So she's done a whole lot of things in this menstrual cup and didn't know it was in there. Which speaks to just how comfortable menstrual cups can be and how you can forget that you have one in. Now I want to get to this point. She said, "I didn't even feel that I was wearing a menstrual cup. Mind you, I always go to pee and wash every time after peeing, but there was nothing. But for a couple days, she had been feeling like her stomach was heavy and like something full was inside of her." But she said that's how unnoticeable the menstrual cup is. She said, "Though I blame myself for being forgetful, I always forget certain scenarios, especially when she gets stressed." She said it's like a short-term amnesia. Okay, so we're going to talk about this scenario real quick. And the reasoning, we see stress, exam, etc., right? However, I want you to understand this really clearly. Menstrual cups should not be left in for more than 12 hours at a time. Okay, that is the absolute max. If you're someone who deems yourself to be forgetful and your period isn't really heavy where you'd be reminded by the fullness of the cup or by leaking, if you have a cup that's leaking, you want to set an alarm because you do not want to keep your menstrual cup in for over 12 hours. There's tons of things that can happen as a result of that, which we'll get into in a little bit. The good thing for her is that outside of feeling a heaviness of some sort and, finding the cup when she went to pee 11 days later, she didn't have too many terrible implications. However, I would recommend going to your gyno after something like this. If you had the cup in longer than the 12 hours, you just want to get checked. I think it's really important that you go get checked because you want to make sure you aren't doing something detrimental to yourself. And while things like toxic shock syndrome are super rare for menstrual cups, and I've done a whole video on toxic shock syndrome, majority of people that get it are from tampons. However, you don't even have to be a woman. Men get it. Older people get it. Babies have gotten toxic shock syndrome because it's from bacteria that seeps into different areas. So it's a whole lot about it. I have a whole video on it. But I say that to say that while getting TSS isn't super common or common at all from a menstrual cup, you can get it. And wearing it longer than the 12 hours that's recommended does increase your risks. So you do want to get checked out for that, and just to make sure you haven't created any internal damage that needs to be checked. So I would always recommend going to your gyno if you leave it in. Let's go check this next one out. Okay, so now this next one is about 3 years ago it was posted, but still relevant because we need to talk about it. This person now left theirs in for an entire month straight by accident. Now, it's going to get progressively worse. Like I told you about one that's been left in just over a week. So, well, more than that, a week and a half, 11 days. And now we're going into one who was left for a month. And then the final one is going to be for a whole year. And we're going to talk about these. But let's read this one in its completion. I'm going to put it in the screen. Coco Milky said, I'll admit this publicly, it just happened. I remember the last night of the previous period reminding myself to remove her cup. I'm not going to put the brand there. In fact, I'll block it out. I don't want to give bad press to any brand or, whatever. They wanted to remind themselves, but they forgot it was there completely. Okay, understandable. They said they didn't feel like they were wearing a cup and the stem wasn't visible nor felt, and they went on business as usual. A week ago, so obviously this is 3 years ago, but a week ago before they posted it, they said they started to experience excess discharge and an unusual smell. So they thought they had developed BV, which is bacterial vaginosis. If you want me to do a video on that, let me know in the comments and I could do that. They ordered some boric acid suppositories, but the period had just started. So they looked for their cup but couldn't find it, so decided to just use their original cup instead. So they have more than one cup. When she removed it, she said the smell was just so bad. It says, in hindsight, I'm shocked I was able to fit 2 large cups with zero suspicion. They said they've done 2 vinegar rinses. I don't recommend that. 2 hydrogen peroxide rinses. Don't recommend that. 3 water boils, and it still reeks of death. The next attempt will be to sunbathe them. And to be clear, they'll talk about vinegar rinses, hydrogen peroxide rinses, and water boils for their cup itself, right? So obviously you could water, I thought they meant they were doing like a flush, like a douche, and that's why I was like, no, don't recommend that. But okay, they're talking about the cup itself. But either way, I still don't recommend doing vinegar rinses on the cup because that could damage the integrity of the cup, as well as the peroxide. I know a lot of people like using hydrogen peroxide because it does get rid of stains if you have staining on your cup, but I don't recommend all of this that they're doing. It can jeopardize the integrity of the cup. It means that it's not going to work as effectively as it can normally. However, they did 3 vinegar rinses, 2 hydrogen peroxide rinses, and 3 water boils, and said it still reeks of death. Their next attempt will be to sunbathe them. Sunbathing is actually quite good for your cup, even for stains. So you can put it in the sun and it naturally bleaches it. That is a really healthy way of, not healthy, but a really good way of trying to remove stains if you have stains in your cup. And of course, you want to water boil it after you do that. You don't want to just stick something that's been outside or sitting in your windowsill in the sun right inside your vagina. That's not something you want to do. Let's keep reading. It says they assumed that with BV and with summertime it would smell bad. So she then switched to discs they put on the second day. 30 minutes ago, they decided to slide the cup out in a different way to avoid spilling, and lo and behold, a firm cup pops out. Weirdly enough, it didn't smell as bad as the second cup that they used. So the one that was in for a month, she's saying, did not smell as bad as the one she had just put in. I'll tell you why, I think that was afterwards. But it says since it was stuck neatly inside, its contents were completely unoxidized and normal. So okay. No stains on the cup either. It says if this were a tampon, they'd probably be dead to tell this tale. It says I will still follow up with the doctor and make sure my lady bits are in the clear, but I experienced no pain or discomfort even with the cup there. It says I learned 2 very important lessons today. Firstly, I need to set cup reminders. Didn't I just say that? And secondly, that I will never use a tampon again. And then it says edit. So this person did not develop BV nor TSS, and they're completely 100% fine. This is after the doctor's visit, I'm assuming. They're switching to a disc as their usual every day and saving their cups for longer wear like trips, etc. Okay, so this is a reusable girly. Okay, it's a few things I actually like about this post compared to the other one. So this one obviously is longer. It's more dangerous. The longer you keep it in beyond that 12 hours, of course, is more dangerous. But I do like that this person knew they had to go to the doctor immediately afterwards to make sure things were fine. I'm glad they were fine. And I like that they also said, okay, I'm someone who forgets this. Let me set an alarm. I also like that they are someone who looks to be using reusable products all the time, and they have tons of cups and discs. So, I mean, if I knew who this person was, I would send them one of our cups because they seem like they are into cups, right? And ours is the best, period. Okay, so now let's move on to the third one, which is the most wild story out of them all. You can see by the picture I've got on the screen, it's wild. They accidentally had their cup in for over a year. I don't know what the original color of the cup was, but it has changed colors. You can tell because it's not the same color across the board. It looks, in fact, towards the tip of it, it looks like it could have been green or blue, and it's like a gray color in the middle, and your cup should never look like this. It actually did not write a whole lot with this other than saying I accidentally had my cup in for over a year, and then someone had said you got to share the story with us, and they wrote I tried to upload it, but then something happened with the computer, their Wi-Fi cut off or something, and the story never got up. Then people kept asking, so they replied back to it and said they're on birth control to try to make their period go away, but they still bleed a few times a year. The flow is completely normal. It says they're guessing it was just in kind of sideways or something so everything could flow by. It says, I honestly don't know. So what they're trying to say is that they're on birth control, so they aren't getting to try to stop their periods. They still get periods occasionally. When they do, they seem to be normal periods, meaning it's still flowing. So they're assuming the cup was sideways. It wasn't in or suctioned properly because they were still flowing as normal. Right? I wish we had more details to this because at some point they had to find this cup. They said it was in sideways. Somehow they had to figure this out, right? If it was in sideways, and looking at its shape, it was curled in. It almost looks like maybe someone went in to get it. And when I say someone, meaning maybe a gynecologist or something, because it'll be really tough to grab it when it's rolled up like that. Or maybe they rolled it up afterwards, after they washed it. So many questions about this. However, I would imagine that there were foul smells. I would imagine that it was possible pain as a result of this, and they had a clue at some point to know that it was in there. If you know more about this story or have any stories of your own about having a menstrual cup in or any reusable product like a disc or something for longer than your 12 hours, let me know in the comments. I'm curious about it, but I want to talk about this a bit more. So at this point, we know that it's not a good idea to have your cup in longer than 12 hours. In fact, you should not have it in for longer than 12 hours. Set an alarm if you're someone who forgets, okay? However, we know that the implications or signs that you may have forgotten your cup are things like foul odors, pain, and of course, like I mentioned earlier, TSS is also something that could happen if you're leaving your cup in longer than it's recommended, okay? So please, when you're purchasing period products, read the instructions, set an alarm if you're someone who's forgetful, visit your doctor, your gyno, if you've had your cup in longer than the recommended time, if you've had a tampon longer than the recommended time, which is really 4 to 6 hours, but definitely no more than 8-hour mark. You want to ensure that you're removing these products when they are to be removed, because not doing so increases your risk of things like TSS, and TSS is deadly. If you enjoyed this video and want to learn more about bacterial vaginosis, leaving your cup in longer than you should, TSS, or anything of the sort, let me know in the comments. I've done a whole video, like I said, on TSS. I can link it here, and of course we could dive into it even more if you have specific questions. And until next time, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss our next video. Toodaloo.